Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time in order to join us today. Special thank you to both Becky and Katy for spending their time and joining us and sharing their insights for today. Today is a very special webinar where this is like always going to be focused for everybody. So there's going to be nuggets of information in here that'll be relevant to regardless if you're a studio, a gym, or a Y. However, we have two Y members joining us today and sharing their insights. I think one of the pieces that we've taken as best practices is and what we wanted to share is in a lot of the webinars that we've had in the past, there's been many people who have been saying, oh, we want to know how we're able to engage with our members beyond health and fitness. And I think the Y partners that we have are shining examples of how you're able to do that, not just in coronavirus times, but even all of the time, because the community is so fundamental to the Y mission. So there's a lot of great information that everyone's going to be able to take away from this. So before we jump into introductions, I just want to say, feel free, participate within the chat. If you haven't done so already, I saw some hellos going within there. We'd love to hear where everybody is from. So go ahead and drop your name, your business, and then what state you're from as we kick things off. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into introductions. So Becky, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off.
Yeah, I'm Becky Schubert. I'm the Association Marketing Director at the Gateway Region YMCA. We have about 24 locations between Missouri and the Illinois side. I provide a lot of help with software for our membership base as well as the Virtuagym app. So we've been pretty instrumental in helping drive how we use the Virtuagym app to respond to our COVID efforts pre and post and how we can use that best to serve our members.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky.
Sorry. I'm Katy Leclair, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Greater Joliet Area Y. We are a 4-club association of YMCAs serving close to 25,000 members across our locations. And just really excited to hear from everyone on this call today about what they're doing in response to COVID. And we definitely find that the use of technology, and particularly Virtuagym, has been a huge strategy move for our organization. And we think that there's a lot of opportunity that exists within the app and within engaging members online and virtually.
Excellent. So I'm Derek. I'm the Director of Corporate Wellness at Virtuagym, but in a previous position, I was actually a Key Account Manager. So I worked very closely with many YMCA organizations across the USA and in Canada. So definitely interested for the global aspect, but also to hear specifically about some of the initiatives that the YMCA is doing. I'll be taking a bit of a back seat in this webinar, but please, as you're communicating in the chat, as you're asking questions in the Q&A, what I'm going to do is try to bring them up to the panelists in kind of where I deem that it fits. So I'll make sure that all of your questions get answered at the appropriate time, whether it be in the presentation or at the end when we have the general Q&A.
Awesome. And then, hey everybody, my name's Kalen Pino. I am the head of the US market here for Virtuagym. And for today, as I've mentioned in a lot of the other webinars as well, I have the role of being the glorified presentation clicker, just setting the stage for our awesome panelists that we have today. And so a couple housekeeping things before we go ahead and get started. I can see that everybody is already familiar with Zoom. There's some good chats that are coming through, and I see that some questions have come through. So that's great. If you guys haven't done so before, a couple ways that you're able to interact with us. So one is going to be through chat. When you're going ahead and using the chat, I see a couple people haven't done so yet. Change the settings on here so that this way, underneath the to section, rather than sending it to just all of the panelists, change it to all of the panelists and the attendees as well. This way it'll be visible for everybody and it'll be more like a dialogue. The other way that you're able to engage with us is going to be through the Q&A function. So that one is just going to go directly to us. If there's a question that you have specifically that you'd like to have addressed by one of the panelists, put it in there, ask it at any time. We're going to be going through these as they're coming through and bringing them up to the panelists so that this way we can work them into the conversation where we can. And if not, we'll definitely make sure to get to them at the end. And then the last thing is at the end of right around 45 or 50, we're going to go ahead and a minute mark. We're going to go ahead and open up to questions as well. And this time you can go ahead and use this little raise your hand feature. And so if you're feeling brave and you wouldn't mind jumping on the mic, you can feel free and do that. That one again will happen a little bit later on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the agenda that we have set for today. And what we're going to be discussing is reopening plans and lessons learned, some 3 tips for reopening, and then having an expert panel discussion on how to engage with our members, as we're going through these unprecedented times. So without further ado, as everybody knows, the United States and many of the countries around the world are going into reopening. The really interesting thing that we're seeing, though, is that reopening is meaning very different things as we look state to state and even country to country. And so we have a really great treat today because both of the states that we are representing, as you can see on the map, are actually a bit different in terms of the approach that the state has been taking in order to be able to reopen. So with that being said, on this particular piece here, I'm really curious. So when this thing first hit, I imagine that both the approach that was taken in Missouri as well as in Illinois might have been the same, but over time, the approach might have evolved based off of what we're seeing at the local level and a statewide level. So this question is for both Becky and for Katy. So if you guys would mind hitting this question together, when COVID hit and the shutdowns began, and now as we're going through reopening, in general, what was the vision for how Year Y was looking to support members during isolation?
Well, for us, we kind of looked at it as all the things that we did when we were open, we still wanted to be able to provide some sort of avenue or help opportunities during the closure. So we took at it from the approach of taking a team of each program area that we supported. So whether it was teens or children or seniors, and really kind of looked at what can we do to connect with them. So for our seniors, we made wellness calls to check in on them to make sure they were doing well during isolation, that they had what they needed. If they needed additional support, we were there to offer it for them and talk them through it. We provided virtual camp opportunities so that kids could jump on and watch and interact, hopefully while their parents were able to get some work done if they still had to work, with that dynamic being so different for our working parents. And we just really tried to make sure that they still knew the Y was a presence. We opened our virtual platforms to the community members at large. We wanted to keep everybody healthy around us. So we really just tried to make sure that they knew that just because the Y was closed, we're just a building. We have buildings, but we are so much more than that. So we just tried to make sure that we still connected with them regularly.
And I would echo what Becky shared, just in terms of trying to replicate as many experiences for families, for members of our community as possible, as that they would have had they come into our facilities, and tried to do that online instead. As we looked at our approach, we really tried to break it out into 3 areas. So how could we reach and serve kids? How could we reach and serve our community? And when we looked at our community work, we really thought about, from the Y's perspective, how do we help their mind, their body, and their spirit? And so, as Becky mentioned, we were worried about making sure that our isolated adults and seniors had phone calls. We made sure that we had actually daily prayer calls available where folks could find a few minutes of just respite by jumping on the phone and hearing from a local faith leader. We engaged our volunteers to help with additional phone calls and serving food and meals to members of our community to make sure that the Y was still accessible and was still doing everything that we could to make sure that we were taking care of our neighbors. And then our third area of focus was our staff team. So what we know is that in any organization, the strength of the organization relies on the strength of the staff team. And so we really focused on how can we make sure that we're taking care of the mind, body, and spirit of our employees as well, and finding ways to engage and support them through this closure.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love that. I think the big thing that I took away from both of the answers that you guys have gave is it goes way beyond fitness. And I think during this time here, when we're looking at the needs of the market, one of the things that I realize is that for many organizations, oftentimes the way that they think about the touch points that their business is able to have with their members is all done in person. And when COVID hit and we had to go on lockdown, all of that went away. However, the thing that changed is that the needs from the members increased drastically in that. So it kind of took two different extremes, where maybe it felt like you had less tools at the moment in order to be able to engage with them like you normally would, but the gap that the member had in terms of what are they doing in order to socialize during this time, what are they doing in order to be able to engage with their health and have healthy habits, what are they doing to engage with their faith, maybe they can't go to church, those are even being locked down. All of that changed drastically. And as a business and organization, we have to think about, what are going to be the ways in order to be able to serve this. For both of your organizations, what sources for you and your team have been the best resources for trying to create a response plan in order to make sure that we're able to serve those needs?
So I think for our why, being able to engage virtually was really important for us. And we started with video activity, right? We started with Zoom, we started with Facebook Live and streaming. And that's when Virtuagym kind of came into our world. We are still in the process of building our tools to prepare to launch Virtuagym with our membership base. But what we see is that by engaging people virtually, we've actually expanded our reach exponentially. So in our first month of closure, we reached more than 300,000 people online, and that's more than we've ever reached in a 1 month period. So by creating engaging virtual content and being able to be quick about getting that to market, we were able to find that we could actually engage and extend our reach more than ever before.
Yeah, we took a similar approach. We also looked at the community partners that we have in our area. So we weren't necessarily just sharing stuff that we had created, but some of our friends that otherwise were doing great videos. And so we would share some of those, or just other local nonprofit organizations that were also putting out the similar kind of content. And so we kind of housed it within our website so that families could have a place to go for resources, so that it was more than, when you think of yourself in a bubble, it can be very overwhelming to see how am I going to connect all these different pieces. But especially as the Y, I mean, we all know that especially as the Y, we have so many partners that are all trying to do the same things and make impact that way. So we tried to share resources where we could as well.
Yep, definitely. So I'm gonna share my screen again. So let me go ahead and just bring that up. Should jump up on everybody's side right now. So with that kind of being said, one of the things that we introduced this right around end of March. So it was early on when the closures were beginning in the United States. And so this might be the first time that some of the viewers have had an opportunity in order to see this. Basically what this is presenting here is the business phases that we presented at the time that we thought organizations are going to go through as we respond to COVID-19. And so as you can see, it's broken up into 4 different stages here. Confusion, which this is the phase where we're just hit with it. The world was going to figure out what do we need to do in order to respond. We had some little quotes within here. OMG, I need toilet paper. I'm sure you guys remember that. And then after confusion came the accept and adapt phase, where we realized, okay, this is the real deal. We need to make sure that at this point now we're taking measures. This might not blow over, so we need to take measures in order to make sure that we have a plan in a way that we're going to be able to engage with our members on an ongoing basis and figure out how we're going to get all of our services there, how will we be productive, etc., and those types of items. The next phase, of course, is preparing. So what are we going to do, in order to be able to reopen, pick the business back up, and then that goes into ramping, which is how do we make sure that we are adapting to a post-COVID phase. So that was the way that we laid out the phases. There was different do's and don'ts per phase. If you guys would like to go ahead and take a look at this piece to reflect on where we've came from, as well as the plans on how to potentially go through preparing and ramping, you can definitely check that out. That one is webinar number 1. So that's the first one that you guys will see that we had when we introduced it. However, as time has gone on, what we've realized is that there's been a couple of different things that we didn't discuss and were anticipated as we go through these phases. So I went ahead and I put a little star where I thought, okay, I think that this is where we're at in terms of here we are as a nation. But I think, like we mentioned before, the U.S. is opening in like different phases. So I feel some of the U.S. is still in the preparing phase, others are in the ramping phase. And one thing that I did is I also added this little cycle here because I don't think it's stagnant. I feel like sometimes we're going in and potentially out of it based off of what we're hearing from and learning from the marketplace. So question that I had for our panelists, as we take a look at this, is for you guys, how has the organization been approaching and evolving the approach as circumstances and phases have changed? What have been some of the big things that have adapted over time?
I can't help but laugh at this question. We have 4 governmental bodies dictating what some of our branches, each individually can do. So we've been doing nothing but adapting to, new rules each day. And we think that we have a plan one day, and then the next day it turns and they've changed the outcome, and now we have to change. So we've been trying to remain as transparent as possible with our members, that, we want to open just like you do. We're concerned about safety just like you are. Here's how we're planning to address these concerns and move forward. But just know that this is ever evolving, and we're in unprecedented times, and we don't have control over this ultimately. So we've really been working with our our local officials and support people, and really trying to make sure that we're coming up with the best way to reopen, and just always staying at the top of our mind that this could change tomorrow. All of our work that we did today might change tomorrow. So it's kind of, we've been just adapting and moving on.
Yeah, and I would echo that, and just adding to the adaptive nature of the work that we're doing. We also have to be incredibly resilient, and we have to be incredibly understanding and empathetic for the fact that not everyone reacts to change with open arms. So as we have staff teams who are adapting continuously and members who are going to be approaching the facility, and a lot of things may look and feel different to them, we're going to have to be really understanding and really ready to have really caring and listen first conversations with people where we're hearing what they have to say, and we're willing to accept that and willing to just be transparent with them and share the reasons behind the decisions as they stand today, knowing that, as Becky mentioned, they could change by this afternoon.
We have also, we're kind of using this opportunity to push through some changes that we would have liked to have made prior to. So some of our processes that are in place and some of our outdated, prior to Virtuagym, or some of our outdated processes that now we can be a little bit more efficient with, that we didn't want to push through the change because staff, going through the retraining of staff and retraining of members can be difficult. But for some things, we're using this as an opportunity, kind of like as an excuse, as a scapegoat, to say, you know what, COVID is making us have all of our members check into their Group X classes when we wanted to get there anyway. We just, weren't on this quick of a timeline. So in some ways, there's some positives. So there's some negatives that come with what happened with COVID, of course, but there are definitely some positives that we can use to our advantage to move forward into this technological era that we're in kind of now.
Yeah. So go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and if I can just kind of, a lot of the times when you're on a webinar, you hear statistics, it's a little bit difficult to see where you kind of land within the overall statistics. So it's really cool that I just launched a poll several minutes ago asking people about their reopening phases, and it's basically aligned with our conversation. So 50% of the attendees who have responded have actually already reopened. So that is kind of comforting to hear, because Kaylin, I remember sitting back on your first webinar when we were talking about the different stages, when it seemed like, you know, ramping and business as usual seemed so far away. So it's really comforting, but we also do see the flexibility or the fluctuations between states, geographic regions, as you guys are also mentioning. For example, we also still see that, you know, there's 10% of respondents who don't even have an open day between now and August. So they're basically at this point planning to reopening their business for some time in the foreseeable future that's not in the next month, month and a half. So kind of it's in line. This the attendee group, the statistics match up what you're saying, as well as what the overall statistics would tell you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So 50%. I had a next question prepared, and I think it's perfect for the 50% of people who haven't had a chance to reopen yet. So one of the things that I think we've been seeing across the industry and is and we didn't take this into consideration, is in the preparing and ramping phase, it's not smooth. There's a lot of friction that's actually going on there. And one of the things that we notice is that there's friction and criticism that many organizations need to be careful with. It's like walking on eggshells, essentially, when going through and reopening. So I've seen with some organizations that even just the fact of announcing a reopening date, it could potentially receive some backlash where, how could you reopen now? Where it's not safe in order to do so. Or maybe if you are reopened and you're allowing people to come in, the decision of, is your staff going to have a face coverings or not? And if so, know that that could potentially be put out there on social media and be scrutinized by the community. So I'm curious, Becky, you know, I know that, you know, if some of your locations have reopened already. What has been the response, you know, from the community as far as reopening?
It's mixed. We were getting a lot of push from, you know, like I kind of mentioned before, some of our locations are very rural, and some of them are more like thick in the city of St. Louis. And so depending on how that area was hit with COVID, some of the community members are like, all right, we're ready, we're going, open the doors. Like, why aren't you open? Yeah, how come I don't have all my pools? How come I don't have like 80 classes that I can choose from today? And so we've some of them were like that, and then some of them, when we did open, you know, we got the phone calls of, I can't believe you guys are doing this, like, it's not safe, I'm not coming back, keep my membership on hold. And we've got various rules depending on the region that they're in, so we kind of went as strict as the guidelines were giving us. So some of our branches, you have to wear a face mask. Some of them, it's just recommended you wear one. Some of them, you have to have your temperature checked. Some of them, you don't. Some of them can't have treadmills. Some of them can. So we've really tried to offer the members what they're asking for. And, you know, I monitor a lot of our social media accounts too. And we're getting a lot of questions on, well, when do I get my Zumba class back? That was Tuesday at 7. Like, I'm ready for that. You know, a lot of members want to get back into their routine. I think at this point it's gone on for so long that even if they aren't feeling the safest, they're just ready to get back into a routine and come back to what they know. So we're trying to accommodate as best as we can. We are opening slowly. So when we first opened doors in each of our waves of branches, we only opened for regular exercise for the first week or two, and then we turn around and we're offering them some lap swim times now and limited childcare hours with very low capacity, and some limited group opportunities, obviously with lower capacity for people to join in so they can socially distance themselves. But we're just trying to reopen slow, figuring that we can always add more, rather than giving everything, realizing, you know, this is not what we should be doing, and then pulling back later.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. You know, one of the things that I think most people are in a spot where they're going to accept is a reduced amount of members who are going to come back to the facility in the beginning, and then we'll have to have them come back in phases based off of their feeling of safety and, you know, their obviously the rules and regulations that govern the amount of people we're able to have. So with that kind of being said, what percentage of members are coming back so far?
When we first opened, I think we saw close to 25% at some of our branches that have been open. So our first wave of branches, there were 4 of them that opened back like May around May 11th, the middle of May. And they're up to seeing like 50% to 70% some days of what their typical usage is. So we've actually been really surprised with the number of seniors that are like knocking down the doors. Like we thought that they would be the ones, you know, we specifically didn't put in senior geared activities classes back in our branches because we want to be cognizant of them being the at-risk population. And but they're the ones that are like, get me back, where's my silver sneakers class, and when can I go have my coffee, you know, at the table. So that was a really surprising thing for us to see, is that the seniors aren't all afraid to come back, they're ready. It's interesting.
And we're experiencing the same thing in Illinois, Becky. So it's interesting to see that. So our seniors are actually walking the parking lots while we're closed. So they're still meeting at the Y and actively walking together outside. So it's been really interesting to see a difference from what we had planned for also. So we've already started to add additional senior program offerings to make sure that those folks have a chance to have that social interaction, because we're hearing from them that that's what they're missing. In terms of return to membership for us, we did a survey, and in the first 3 days, we had 1,000 responses. And in the survey, we asked our members, do you intend to come back? And 77% of the members said we intend to be back in the first month. So really hopeful what that's going to mean for our Y. As we look at retention through the closure, we did stop drafting our members while we were closed. We felt like it wasn't right to charge fees for a service we couldn't provide. And so in doing that, we've actually maintained 91% of our membership base as active throughout the closure. So the vast majority of our people are staying with us. And we've got just a few percentage points of folks who are on hold of that 9%. So not all 9 are gone. Many of them are just on hold waiting to come back with us. So we're really hopeful that we're going to see a strong return to membership. We've not been able to open the insides of our buildings, but we have opened the outside for outdoor group exercise and outdoor personal training and a variety of different offerings. And what we found is that we were selling those outdoor offerings out right away. So we launched those the first day that we were able to, based on our local regulations, and those classes were full. And so we had to start adding additional offerings. So we are seeing that people want to be back together. And we're hopeful that that trend is going to continue as we get to open the insides of our buildings on Monday.
Yeah, so I think there's a question, Caitlin, that came in that might be a good timing for this at the moment. And basically, a lot of the services, Becky and Katie, that your organizations were relying on were very much virtual as a part of the lockdown phase, so to speak. Obviously, you've progressed since then, but there's still some colleagues and also, you know, friends in the industry attending this, et cetera, that aren't necessarily as far into the reopening as necessarily we are. Did you have any specific channels in which you tried to also engage those with potentially disabilities or maybe a non-tech savvy community? Since obviously the virtual component may be challenging or difficult for those groups.
So for our Y's perspective, we actually ran some classes on how to use Zoom. So we gave people the opportunity to come and learn some new technology skills. So for those who might have had a technology barrier, we offered some supports to be able to help them. We also made a lot of phone calls, particularly to our folks who we know might have had mobility challenges, to make sure that they had access to the support and the resources that they needed. And so we were calling people just to engage that way. So those are a couple of avenues that our Y used.
Yeah, we did pretty similar. We weren't targeting groups that we knew had disabilities, but we were providing what the virtual content that we were sharing out did cover different abilities. So some of them were chair exercises and some of them were on feet. And we adapted how we were font wise. Some of the things that we would put out, we would hear from people who had vision issues that they couldn't really read it. So we took that to heart and we started putting out things with larger font or darker colored font. And providing, we would send out our emails, but if people still couldn't read it, we provided like a video, or they couldn't see it or hear. If we did a video, then we would provide the transcript kind of so that they could actually read the message, that they were getting the same information. As far as specific classes though, for disabilities, we didn't go quite that far.
There's another question here from Lorna as well, and she was asking about the approaches that you guys were taking regarding some of the senior members that you guys have at the organization. Did you guys introduce any specific hours for the senior members?
We are launching what we're calling Safe Swim Time. And so during that time, we're providing side access to the facility. So an easier way for folks who might indicate themselves as vulnerable, whether it's age or immunity challenges, that they can come in straight through a side door onto the pool deck and be able to enjoy the aquatics features of our facilities. So all of our facilities will have at least a few hours a week that provide that access point for folks.
That's great. We did not. That's great.
Yeah, this one was super interesting. I saw a global study that was done where they asked a couple, well, more than a couple, a lot of questions to the different gyms across the world, and this was one of the questions where were they having specific hours dedicated for senior or at-risk members, and only 4% of the total respondents across the world said that they did have something in place, kind of like how grocery stores are doing something similar. So I did think that piece was pretty interesting to see the response there.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and share my screen again, guys, and we can go ahead and continue through. Alrighty. So the big question, next questions that I want to go ahead and ask now are really just kind of some general questions about reopening in general. And so maybe we can hit this, first we can maybe start with Katy. Katy, you can take us through kind of these three questions as well, as far as what you've learned during this time, so that others can put their best foot forward as well as they're looking towards reopening. So for the first one, what was the biggest surprise when reopening?
Yeah, so I think we've shared a little bit about our biggest surprise, and that was honestly the level of engagement of our active older adult population. Just seeing folks who are really looking for that social interaction, even more so than the fitness activities. And so just finding an opportunity in a way for those people that we might have thought would be a little bit nervous to come back, and to see them coming back in droves has been a big surprise for us, and something that we've had to adapt and plan for.
Awesome. And then, yeah, I think we definitely talked through that a bit. So we don't have to dig any deeper into that one, since we definitely hit that one a bit of detail. But for number two, for a facility that's looking at reopening, what can you advise them as far as something to avoid when reopening?
So from our perspective, I think one thing that we avoided, fortunately, early on was promising a date too soon, right? So when you put a date out there, we're going to reopen on this date, and if that date is too far away and the guidance changes, you end up in a situation where you're not able to live up to a promise that you've made to your membership base. So for us, we were really thoughtful about doing all of the planning to be prepared, but not launching the date of reopening until very, very close to that time frame. So that was something that we felt was a protection that we could afford to make sure that our relationship stayed strong with all of our members and all of our program participants.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. I think that especially being from our end as well, we're used to these types of things. Being a technology company, everybody always asks us, when are you guys going to develop this this feature? And so we have to make sure to manage the expectations there correctly. And the biggest thing is not to promise a date, and to manage the expectations accordingly. So with that kind of being said, how would you recommend, in order to advise somebody to manage the questions of when people are looking for a date, and the realization that it's not just yourself who gets to decide that date, but so many factors taken into consideration?
Absolutely. So I would say start by drafting your communication plan from the back front to the front. So start by, at this date, we're going to be announcing reopening. What other information can we give people along that journey? And how do you make sure that you're managing kind of a calendar of communication, so that you're always giving more information until you're ready to give kind of that big nugget of information around that date that everybody's really looking forward to. So I would say start at the end and work your way back to the front, and just make sure that you've got regular communication going out throughout that journey for everyone.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I think yeah, two things within there is obviously the approach of making sure that you're breaking it down into steps. But the other thing, which I think is super important in that answer as well, is the continued communication throughout the way. Don't just go silent and wait to give them that big nugget of information at the end. It's important to make sure that you're taking them along the journey.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then last question on this one is, what's the number one tip that you would give for those who haven't reopened at the moment?
Stay strong. You're going to get there. It's all one foot after the other. And so just kind of continue marching your path, and we're all going to get there. The world is going to reopen, and we'll all learn and experience it together. So just keep moving.
Awesome. All right. And then Becky, same questions for you. You know, the first one, I stopped sharing the screen, so I'll go ahead and read it, but it is, what was the biggest surprise for you and your organization when reopening?
I think, again, with the seniors, but also with the amount of how split the people are on whether you should be opened or not, and whether they believe it's actually a thing or don't believe it's actually a thing. And that I think I was expecting that as soon as we were able to reopen, everybody would just be like, okay, great, we're fine, because we went through all of these hurdles, and we're still finding people that aren't. So that's definitely a surprise. Still those seniors coming back quick, though. That is the biggest one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that you mentioned as well, and you know, kind of taking it, which was about the split between, here's the amount of people who are ready and eager to come back, but then you have another group of members who aren't eager to come back as well. And one of the things that, you know, I think we mentioned in a previous webinar before is, you know, don't take the out of sight, out of mind approach and just focus on the people who are in the facility, but you should have a strategy in place for how are you making sure to, one, communicate with people to make sure that they understand, you know, what's happening with the organization, but two, also make sure that they're still getting the benefits and what it means to be a member as well. How have you at your organization been kind of looking at both of those things simultaneously? Because it's kind of a juggling act, you know, in a way.
Yeah, we've made sure we've been very open with the procedures and processes that we're putting into place to try to keep everybody as healthy as possible. But then we've committed to continuing to provide virtual activities for them too. So if they're not quite ready to come back, they can continue to access our content virtually. We're allowing them, if they would like to remain on a hold for the next 2 months because of COVID reasons, they just aren't going to come back, then we'll allow them the opportunity to do that. We're also, some of the concerns to come back is financial. So we have a lot of people that haven't been working and aren't in a position right to come back and start their draft again. So we're offering a kind of like a special COVID, very little paperwork involved opportunity for them to jump into financial assistance for a while to get them back on their feet. So we're trying to, you know, there's just a bunch of different layers that leads people to want to come back or not want to come back. And so we're really trying to hit all of those as best that we can, knowing that we still need to be fiscally responsible, as same as Katy's Y. We have not been drafting throughout the closure either. So that's quite a few months for a Y not to have any revenue coming in. So.
Yeah, definitely. And then going to the second question, and the next piece within there was, you know, what could you advise somebody to avoid when reopening?
I probably would say not to move too quickly. Don't, just because you open up your doors again doesn't mean you have to jump 100% into the exact schedule and offerings that you had before. We need to give time for our staff to get reacclimated. That's what we're kind of seeing is, you know, our staff are coming back. They've had almost 3 months off now. They're trying to come back. They've got to go through the HR process with their paperwork. They've got to figure out the schedule. They've got to go through new COVID training so that they know how to behave, you know, responsibly, and then learn all the systems and changes that we're kind of taking advantage of this time to push through. They've got to learn all of that. So rather than saying, okay, now we're open 100% fully, we're really trying to just open up in phases to make it manageable for us, but also still staying financially responsible, just because we don't have 100% of our members coming back in the door right now. And we will still have people staying on hold and, you know, not paying at the moment. So that has kind of helped us to, that's going to help us get out of this in a financially pleasing way as much as we can.
Yep. Alrighty, and then last question then before we jump into some of the details of you know, some of the information that you guys have shared with us so that we can share some of those visuals with everybody else is number one tip for those people who haven't opened.
Stay flexible. Don't get married to an idea that you have come up with or something you created. I mean, I'm in marketings, we've created quite a few pieces of materials and, you know, things that need to get put out, and then like the day later they're, oh, take them back, they're not going to be used anymore. So sometimes you can feel like at times you can feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're not really getting anywhere because so many things are changing. But just know that we're all going through that same thing, and just stay flexible. And like Katie said, we will get out of this. There's an end in, I feel like there's an end in sight. So just keep at it and stay flexible.
Yeah, definitely. Would you guys, would you share like an example of something that you produced that had to have been pulled back? 'Cause obviously, I mean, these are things that were created with great intentions, and then bam, something had, yeah.
I don't know whether it's emails that are drafted with certain dates on them, or all of the signage that we're preparing to put up in all of our buildings, and then suddenly a rule changes of oh no, now we can't, I don't know, the distance is changing, or now this equipment isn't even available, so you have to go shut off this thing. And at what we thought when we opened our first 4 branches, the requirements there were very lax. So we were able to put in our own safety measures, and kind of that's what we expected to do as we continue to open. So we had the materials created and we could move forward. And then we soon learned that was not going to stay. So as soon as we got into county rules, now we have to, some branches again require temperature checks, some require masks, some don't. So everything that we had created thinking that we could just plug and go is now totally different. And then you get into Illinois, where Katie is from there as well. So they were able to start outdoor classes, about a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago maybe at this point. Outdoor personal training or indoor personal training, outdoor group X, and lap swimming. In our phase timeline, that does not come first. So we really had to just kind of adjust everything that we did as each of our governmental areas kind of came out with new guidelines. We just had to readapt, and that's just kind of the world that we're living in now. So just kind of go with it and pray for the end to come.
Wow, yeah. So it's literally everything. So everyone should recognize that when Katie and Becky are both saying that you need to be flexible, everything is going to be subject to being open to change. So it really is not just one thing or another.
No.
Alrighty. Well, you guys were both very kind in order to share some elements on the website as far as the approach that you guys have been taking in order to be able to engage the members. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again so that this way we can share that with people who are attending today, and maybe we can spend some time in talking to what it is exactly that we're taking a look at and how it's been helping with the member experience in closure as well as through reopening. So first one I have here is obviously this one here is from one that Becky shared, which is the virtual workouts. So talk us through a little bit of what was the approach here and how it's changed, because I know that in the last webinar we had together, you introduced and presented this as a way that you're engaging with the members for the time being. And I think the last time we spoke, was that 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, Becky? Like
I don't even know.
Yeah.
The days run together at this point.
They blur now, yeah.
Right. Yeah, this was, so when we first, COVID first came on the scene, we really thought that we were just going to close for like a weekend and clean our facilities and then open back up like a day or 2 later. And then, like 2 days later, we realized that was just not going to be an option as the government started saying you are shutting down, you're closing as of this date. And so this page was one of them that we put up pretty quickly when we heard that we were going to have to shut down. We really wanted, again, to come up with a way for people to stay connected. So this was more of along the lines of the health and wellness side. So staying physically active. Some of these are our own classes that we, in a very hurried manner, tried to get filmed and recorded and put out there before. We didn't know this at the time, but then we did end up needing to temporarily lay off a lot of our staff. So we kind of had to put that to a halt a little. But so these were all recorded classes. We worked with some of our partners like Les Mills and MOSA and I think maybe Matrix was one too, and they all had little platforms that we could share out as well. So members could jump on and watch a pre-recorded class. And then we kind of evolved from this. We still offered this, but then we switched into Zoom call workouts so that you could still talk to your instructor or, you know, see fellow people and actually have that interaction. And so we did that with some of our execs that were previous instructors and still on staff. And so they were running those. And now we're kind of, since we're starting to open, we've committed that we'll still be doing virtual workouts at least through the month of June. We'll probably go a little bit farther into July, but really trying to get a feel for what people are wanting, because a lot of them that were on the Zoom calls with us were actually in that senior population, and as we've said, they're banging on our doors to have us bring back the classes. So we did some through YouTube, some through Zoom, and we kind of ended up with Zoom is where we landed.
Ah, okay. So Zoom is what ended up being the predominant way of getting the classes and
yeah, strictly because we were able to face-to-face interact with them versus, you know, if it's a YouTube class, you're talking to a camera, nobody's talking back or participating with you. And we didn't really feel like that was providing the engagement level that, you know, we kind of wanted to check on these people and make sure that they weren't, you know, keep them from being so isolated. So we kind of pulled away from YouTube. We still had stuff that was shared already and filmed, and we would send out weekly emails to everybody to keep them in contact. And here's some workouts you can do this week, and here's some this week. And we did special ones just for seniors. And so we still use that avenue, but from our day-to-day, here's our workout for you, it's going to be live, we use Zoom.
Awesome. And then a last question on this slide is this something that you think your organization is going to continue to plan to continue post-COVID as a core offering?
We will continue virtual workouts for sure. We're determining right now what that will look like. We have some partners that we work with that we potentially may continue to partner with on it. And so rather than us creating classes using theirs and moving forward, but we are looking into virtual membership options and kind of preparing for, you know, should this come back again or a similar situation and we have to shut down, what can we offer people so that, you know, looking at it too, if we have something else that we can fully offer and here you go, it's a membership type, we can downgrade people through that closure time to that membership rather than, you know, just stopping everybody from drafting during that time. So we're kind of looking at some different options there.
Awesome, very cool. And then going to the next piece that you shared, I also had that you guys have a Membership Matters page. Tell us a little bit about what that page is and how it works into the organizational goals.
Yep, when we decided not to draft everybody, we put it out there to them. We let them know, you know, reminding we are a nonprofit organization and every dollar matters to us in order for us to continue offering these community resources. And so what we would, in all of our communications to our members, we would give them the option to use their dues for good. So they could opt in to continue paying their membership dues even while we were closed. And we had about 5,000 membership units that did continue to stay with us and pay even though they weren't coming into the Y, which was really great. And we that surpassed our hoped expectations. So we will be doing something special for those that did choose to stay with us. We haven't quite determined what exactly that's going to be because I mean, how do you thank people for that? So we're working through that, but this was definitely a big piece of our philanthropic efforts that we did while we were closed.
Awesome. And then the other interesting thing that I saw and thought was such a great program is the family resources that you guys are offering. And so I love this piece. I thought that this was really great when you came on and spoke last. I think one of the things that you shared was that there was a story time that as part of this as well. Did you guys end up maintaining that, or did that go to Zoom as well?
We did that a couple times. We did a story time a couple times, and then a lot of the people that were doing those were part of the staff that were temporarily let go for the time. So we worked with the ones that we did have on staff, and they provided like a virtual camp opportunities, experiments that they could do from home, whether it's some live opportunities or not. We have an overnight camp, and so they did a big Zoom call that was all the returning campers, and they did a big campfire kind of scenario and skit. So that was really kind of cool to see. We did some water safety tip videos that we kind of threw together with some instructors that we did have, and kind of things for parents to look for, because we're coming into summertime. This is the biggest time for Ys to teach kids how to swim, and safety is number one. So how do we do that when we're closed? So we really tried to, like I said in the beginning, we split off into teams based on our department areas, and really tried to say, okay, how are we going to keep people connected from our aquatics lens, and how are we going to keep people connected from our sports lens? So we did sports tips videos and things like that, and how we're going to keep people connected for fitness, and just all of the areas that we typically touch. We wanted to kind of bring them into this page. And so we were able to, on every communication that we sent out, we directed people to to all three: the family resource page, the workout page, and then our mobile app download, so they could access through content through that way. So we heavily pushed this out and got great
That's
feedback.
awesome.
Parents loved the activity, so it was good.
What was that? I was speaking at the same time, sorry.
I'm sorry. We got really good feedback from the parents. They loved doing them, and the kids would see some familiar faces, so they liked seeing that too. And they, but overall, it went over really well between the families.
Yeah, this piece as well, I really loved, because I feel like it goes beyond just the individual maybe who has a membership. It goes into the family memberships, and making sure that you're looking at a family unit as how do we engage with the community. And I feel like this piece was great, in addition to the coffee hours that were hosted as well. Another great a great item as well. And Katy, I know you had a chance in order to share some pieces as well. So yeah, I saw that this one is the general communication page that you shared with us. Like, how has this piece worked with your organization as well?
Yeah, so I think just staying in touch with our members has been really critical in ensuring that we can welcome them back and keep them informed. And so this purple banner is a new banner on our website where we started to link information that members could find exactly what was happening for the Y and what to expect from us. And then the scrolling images that you see underneath provided an opportunity for us to really showcase what we're doing to care for our kids, to care for our community, and to care for our staff. And so we just felt like getting information in front of people during this time was really critical. And we used this landing page as a way to make sure that members always knew where to go to find current up-to-date information.
Awesome. So this was the resource then for your organization for any news and information that was being pushed out would hit this page.
Yep, anything that was going on would hit this page and give folks a chance to be able to see the incredible work that was happening, and just the positivity that was happening in our community too. So one of the things that we found is that the vast majority of online content was not the most positive, right, during this experience. And so trying to create a little beacon of hope through the Y by providing all of the uplifting work and the incredible service and volunteerism and community partnerships that were happening amidst the closure was something that was really important for our organization to make sure we were highlighting and spotlighting.
Oh, this is really great. So I know you just came on to Virtuagym, so I hope if our key accounts manager is listening, we gotta make sure to include this page into the home screen of their app. Awesome. And then you also shared some additional images of some of the things that are happening around the facility as well. So I think this one here kind of speaks for itself. This red tape here is essentially as a studio and a blocked off section for somebody, huh?
Yep, exactly. So what we want to do is make sure that we are providing clarity of expectations for everyone as they come into the facility, so that we can work to minimize any conflicts or lack of understanding around expectations for members and for staff. And so we've implemented just a massive amount of signage, both directional and informational and educational, to try and make sure that everyone is aware of the uniform expectations that we have, and how we can work together to make sure that we can keep each other healthy. And so you see the lines on the floor kind of indicate this is an area for one person to work out. The signs throughout the facility just kind of remind people of what kind of behaviors we need to expect of each other. So we need to take care of our equipment, we need to wipe things down before and after use, and we need to respect the boundaries that other people have around us as well. So just trying to really build in a sense of clarity and understanding for everyone as they look to get back to the facilities here soon.
Yep, awesome. And then on this one here, I'm not sure if everybody can see it on their screens. For me, when I read it, this looks like expectations for the member as well, as far as the member's responsibility within cleaning as well. So it'd be two parts to it: the staff responsibility, of course, but then you have the member piece within there as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So we wanted to make sure and just reinforce for our members that we want you to be wiping things down before and after use. We want you to manage your health just as much as we're willing to manage it for you. And so to do that and to be a part of our healthy community, we need your help and we need your participation. So those are just reminders for them to make sure they're wiping down their equipment.
Awesome. So at this point now, let's go ahead and do that last section of questions as well from the audience. So if you'd like, feel free to raise your hand. There's a little function within here. If you're brave enough in order to go ahead and speak out your question, definitely would love to have that. While we wait for some of the last questions to come through, one of the things that I wanted to ask Katy, because I know that you also shared some of the staff planning with me as well. And I saw that you introduced, if I butcher it, I'm sorry. I think it was a 15-10-6 rule.
Yes, we implemented a 15-10-6 rule to help our staff to create social distancing for themselves, between themselves and members. So if a member is approaching a staff member and they're 15 feet away, we want to be making eye contact so that we can start to acknowledge each other's presence. So at 15 feet, we want to make eye contact. And at 10 feet, we want to greet them by name if it's possible. And then if they continue to approach and are getting close to that 6-foot mark, we want to ask the question, how can I assist you? And so we're doing that as a way to help our staff be able to manage social distancing and to create healthy relationships with our members. And so 15 feet is that eye contact, 10 feet is greeting by name. And then at 6 feet, we want to ask, how can I help you? How can I assist you? So that we can help support our staff in keeping a safe space for them too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Derek, I saw a couple of the questions coming through, but I only saw the icon of the question coming through, and I didn't actually have a chance to read it yet. Was there any additional questions in dialogue that are interesting to bring up?
Yeah, so we have a question related to virtual membership. So I think they directly referenced you, Becky. And one of the questions they were asking is, with this virtual membership, you're obviously talking about different features or different solution, different use case. Did you use that accordingly in your membership fees to maybe adjust them, add-ons, etc.?
Yeah, we're looking at something that can be included as an add-on to their regular membership, and then something that can be a standalone. So it can go either way. Something that if we're closed down again, we still have offered to them. And then some people, you have that market that they really don't want to come in every day, or maybe they want a personal trainer, but they don't necessarily need to work out with them. So what kind of virtual opportunities can we provide? And we're still ironing out what those details will look like, but we intend for it to be either or.
Okay, and that's awesome. And then the other question was actually for Katy. The other one, I think it's the last outstanding question we have exactly, is when you were talking about administering the Zoom classes, I think we got some dialogue wondering basically about how you administer that. So how would a member basically access the Zoom and be joining the session?
Yep. So for our Zoom-based fitness classes, we did post those links online through the schedule. And so that would be just kind of embedded right into the schedule. We also posted links through our Facebook page. We use Facebook for member communication pretty extensively. And so we provided the links that way. For classes that required a fee or registration, we did have folks register through our registration software. And then the week of class, we would do an email that would just set out expectations for them, provide them with a link, and introduce them to the instructor. And so just kind of depending on whether it was a fee-based or a free class, it would either be posted online or shared specifically via email with individuals.
Cool. And that was it for the questions, but I thought maybe something interesting to note, because no one raised their hand, but there was a specific individual in this call today. It looks like their branch opened in January and then was shut down at the end of March. So they had specifically mentioned now that they've essentially been closed longer than they've been open. So this particular person, Kathy, I believe was the name, was specifically thanking you guys. So I'm not sure if you guys had the chance to see that, but I think she also appreciated, Katy, kind of your motivational aspect, kind of when you gave that tip, etc. So just something interesting to note.
All righty. So Yeah, it looks like we have a little bit of a shy group today for the hand raising, so that's okay. So we did have our session today booked out for another 15 or so minutes. So if you guys want to go ahead and ask some questions, we can definitely incorporate those. So again, don't be shy. While we wait for those questions in order to come through, one of the things that I also wanted to share is, some of the ways that we've also been helping during this time. So as a company, our goal is to work with all of our customers in order to make sure that we're also able to help them during this time and beyond. So we've incorporated some features very recently. So for all the VG customers who are on here, you guys should have seen this in the newsletters announcing some of the features. So one of those things as part of the Corona features is linking to those video classes. So if you guys are offering classes, and these are either via Zoom or YouTube links, Vimeo, whatever that site that you might be using in order to offer those video classes, you're able to incorporate this within your schedule. So all you have to do is when you create it, plug in the little URL within there, and then that's going to make it available on the app as well. So at the time, they can just go ahead and click the blue button. That'll launch straight into that program, and so it's all streamlined through the system as well. Derek, feel free to cut me off at any point and bring in any of those questions, man. I can see the chats going.
Yeah, nothing here, but Esther's definitely saying that they're definitely not shy. Or I suppose all the questions are basically being answered.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And so then another one. This one is what we call the triage questions. So before booking. So we've incorporated this into the schedule as well. And so what is this? Essentially, this is a COVID-19 disclaimer. So questions about, have they had a cough or a fever in the last couple of days? Do they have anybody who's living with them who maybe have been showing symptoms as well? This is something that, and a couple of other questions as well. You can go ahead and turn this on within the schedule, so that when somebody is going to book a class, if they answer yes to any of these things, it's not going to allow them to book the class. So another thing that we made available as well for our customers. So if you guys haven't seen these things, want to know how to enable it, reach out to your client success consultant, and they can go ahead and teach you guys how to enable this. Another one, and this one's huge for reopening, is we launched a check-in manager. So this is designed so that this way, at any given point in time, you're going to be able to know how many people are within the facility or a particular room by making sure that we can track how long they've been in the facility as well. So it's check in, check out, and you can see you can have a running total on this. And the idea for this, of course, is to make sure that you're able to make sure that you don't have too many people in a given space at one time, but also make sure that you're making it fair for the other members who are there. So if you're going to have policies in place where maybe it's 1 hour of using the weight room and then 30 minutes where the staff is going to be cleaning up, you can use this in order to manage this as well, so that you can see how long people have been in rooms at a time. And then the other thing that we have is a new tile that you're able to incorporate within your app, which is a little Corona tile. So that icon is now available in there for you guys as well. And here's where you can go ahead and put any of the information that you want, which could be the Corona rules to your facility, so a response plan as well. So all you have to do is enable this tile, plug in that URL, and then that'll be available within your home screen so that your members can have access to it. Awesome. So yeah, those were the last pieces that I wanted to share as well. At this point, then, if there's no other questions then from the attendees that we have today, then just want to end with a thank you. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time in order to join us today. A special thank you to Becky and Katy for lending their expertise and sharing what their organizations are doing during this time. Thank you guys both for joining us today and sharing that.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
Take good
for
care.
having us.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, everybody, have a great rest of the day, and then feel free to join us again next Tuesday, where we'll be continuing the discussion and learning from other panelists as well as far as how we're approaching the situation at the time. And we'll talk to you then. Take care. Bye.
Bye.